Hey everybody. Well, welcome to a special Facebook Live. I know I don't do these very much on my personal page, but I have had several people that I've been wanting to talk to recently, and I thought, what better way to do that than to just put it online so everyone else can hear the cool stuff we're talking about. So today I'm talking to my friend Paige Johnson, who I met at my church, Waterline Church. Probably, I don't know, how long have you been going to Waterline, or you were going to
Um,
Waterline?
I have been there since June, but I
Okay.
met you in April when I visited.
Okay, so like 1 year, I've basically known
Mm-hmm.
about a year now, so that's cool. And you came there as an intern, if I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, but since then, I mean, there's a lot I want to ask you about. So before we jump into that, just tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, what your background is, and how you got into ministry.
Yeah. So, like Erica said, my name is Paige, and I basically describe myself as I love God and NASCAR or racing in general. But I'm originally from South Dakota, and I went to college in Oklahoma at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. And that's where I met John and Danielle Freed, which are our pastors, and they recruited me to come to Indiana. But I got into ministry when I was in high school, and I wanted to be a NASCAR reporter. And so I went to intro to media and audiovisual class, and I really enjoyed it. But then a reporter came to class and was talking about how much time he spent in front of the computer. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to be around people. And so I asked my pastor if I could job shadow him. And he said, yeah. And so I went to church and I basically became an office volunteer and my sophomore year of high school. And it was really, really fun. And I sat in this little hallway in the church where like the copier and stuff was, and I could hear all the conversations going on in the different offices. And I really loved all of the church talk that I got to hear. And so I thought to myself, I want to have those conversations with people one day. And God kind of progressively called me into ministry through volunteering at church.
So tell me, you must really love NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, where does that come from? Where does your love of NASCAR come from?
Yeah, so I really love NASCAR, and I'm starting to learn more about IndyCar. But I've watched NASCAR ever since I was really little, and my parents got me into it because they always watched it. And my mom said I would sit on my dad's lap as a baby and watch NASCAR. And so then in 2006, I really loved reading. And so I got NASCAR books and I started learning like more of the technical stuff and the rules and the people. And so I really love NASCAR now for the people that are in it. And that's why I'm really starting to love IndyCar now that I've moved here, is because of the people that I get to meet. So that's really why I love NASCAR and how I got into it.
So is NASCAR big in South Dakota and Oklahoma?
I think it's bigger in Oklahoma than it is in South Dakota because Oklahoma has a lot of dirt track racers and the Chili Bowl, and those are really big deals, and those can lead to NASCAR. Plus, Oklahoma is closer to NASCAR tracks than South Dakota is. But I'm not really sure like how my dad got into it because there's not a ton of people in South Dakota who like NASCAR. I was always a little bit weird.
What should we know about South Dakota? Because I know I've had this conversation with you before, but I didn't know anyone from South Dakota until I met you. And so what should we know? Anything cool?
Well, South Dakota is a pretty nice state. It's not just Mount Rushmore, in case anyone was wondering. And if you live in South Dakota, you don't live by Mount Rushmore. That's not an automatic thing.
Nothing.
Like I live 6 hours from Mount Rushmore. But cool thing about where I lived and where I went to high school was there was a waterfall in the middle of the city. So that was really cool. And then it does get really cold, like everybody thinks, but we don't still ride in covered wagons. We have electricity. We have running water. And so we're not all farmers, but South Dakota is really cool because you have a lot of hospitality. Everybody waves at you, and you really get to experience kind of like a small town and what comes with that.
Okay, so the main reason that I want to talk with you today, Paige, is because of this ministry that you started. And about this time last year was really when I started really diving into my research about church planting and kind of different ministries that speak to niche interests that people have. Like, it was just a whole new world to me. I was so sort of fascinated by the people that were out there planning churches. And, you know, like, there's a church in Disney World for Disney employees. Like, there are cowboy churches, there are CrossFit churches, churches for people that work in restaurants. I mean, there are so many different churches out there these days. And then also alongside of that, ministries that are within specific interest groups. And I think that's so necessary and important because, you know, a traditional church isn't necessarily going to reach everyone. That's not necessarily what everyone's looking for these days. The big, either a big mega church or an older traditional church, we've got to have options. And so tell me about tell me about the ministry that you're running and how you decided to start it and just some of the details about that.
Yeah. So the ministry that I'm starting is Speedway Racing Ministries, and it is a racing ministry that focuses on creating moments where the racing community can encounter Christ through relationships and service. And so there are three areas that like make up Speedway Racing Ministries, and that is first of all, I would like to do something at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so like a campground ministry for the fans, or a way to serve the people at the local racetrack, which for me is Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When I was in college, I served with a raceway ministry called Texas Alliance Raceway Ministries, and they do campground and fan ministry at Texas Motor Speedway, and that really kind of gave me the idea for what this part of my ministry is in Indianapolis. That part's still in the works and it's on pause because of the coronavirus, but that hopefully will be something in the future. Right now, the other two parts of my ministry are really going strong, and those are online. And so I have a Facebook group. It's called Christian NASCAR Fan Community. I would eventually like to have an IndyCar one too, but I don't know enough about IndyCar yet to feel comfortable talking to a bunch of IndyCar fans. But Christian NASCAR Fan Community is a group where we grow together as followers of Christ and NASCAR fans. And so our slogan is running life's race together. And it's kind of like a discipleship group where we can talk about all of the NASCAR stuff that's going on, but we also can pray for each other. We have devotionals, we have scriptures, and it's really a cool opportunity to meet other race fans and grow in your relationship with Jesus. And so we've done Zoom Bible studies, and we've done some giveaways, and they're all focused on building community and helping people grow in their relationship with Jesus. And then I also have a blog where I develop content to integrate faith and racing. And so my blog is called Paiges Pit Stop. And the slogan for that, thanks, is running life's race well. And so I want to help race fans and people who work in the racing industry run their race in life well with on God's race team. And so on my blog, I talk about things like Jesus is your spotter, or Jesus is your hot pass. Today, I just posted one about iRacing and the real thing versus a simulated thing, and how Jesus doesn't want us to have a simulated relationship. He wants the real thing. And so those are the three areas that Speedway Racing Ministries will hopefully cover one day and is starting to cover now. but I just started this in July. And so there's been a lot of learning and a lot of growing, and I'm only 23. And so it's kind of like a big thing with lots to learn, but it's been so fun and so fulfilling. And I've gotten to meet a lot of racing people in the Indy area, and also like around the country. I've gotten to go to a racing ministry conference with the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries and meet tons of people who are doing campground ministry at a lot of the NASCAR tracks. And so it's been fun to see how the racing community is being impacted with the gospel. And so that's my ministry, and that's what I'm hoping to do and to continue to develop.
So I just want to get your thoughts on, why do you think it's important to have these more kind of honed in things rather than just like special Christian XYZ? Why is it important for us to have these sort of divvied up ministries that are devoted to specific interest areas?
Yeah. So, like, if you look at Jesus's ministry, Jesus was all about meeting people where they were at, and he was very intentional in creating specific moments for the like specific people that he was with. And so, for example, I didn't really like notice this until I went to Israel and like heard a talk on it myself, but Jesus, when he did his parables, it was like he was talking to people about their backyards. And you always hear that, you know, like when they preach about the parable sermons, like the people really understood these, but we don't really get that. But when I was in Israel, my tour guide was talking about this parable that Jesus had. I think it's in Mark, where he says that there was a vineyard, a wine press, and something else. I don't remember, but a vineyard, a wine press, and something else. And I was in Nazareth, and we literally, behind us, there was a vineyard, a wine press, and the other thing that he was talking about. Like. Yes. And it was so cool because that's where it hit me. Jesus loved these people so much that he was intentional in talking with them about things they understood. He was so contextual, and like you don't always hear all about that in the church because the church has been so traditional and a lot like that. But Jesus was so intentional in his ministry. And so that's why I think like ministries that really meet people where they're at are so important, whether it's a contextualized church to the community or like a marketplace ministry where you work, or a interest group like a biker's church or a cowboy church or something like that, because it's meeting people where they're at with words that they can understand. Because the gospel is supposed to be integrated into your life in every single area of your life. But if we sit back and we use like academic language, or we keep the gospel in the church building, then how is it being integrated into people's lives? And so that's why I really think these like smaller contextualized ministries are really, really important for communities and for people in integrating the gospel into all of their lives. And it follows what Jesus did.
Yeah, I know you gave me, I think it was you that gave me the Fresh Expressions book, which I read the whole thing. I mean, it's a tiny book, but it was so interesting and really cool to see what that organization is doing. Do you know of any of the other cool stuff that they're doing, any of the other churches that they have going?
So I had wanted to look into some of the conferences and stuff they were doing, but then the coronavirus hit. And so it's kind of, I haven't looked into that because I assume they were all canceled.
Well, they had a ton of them in there. Now I can't remember, but just on that note, just as someone that works in the church, what have been your thoughts on how the church has been affected by the coronavirus, and how, you know, not being able to meet, you know, to those of us who are there every Sunday and we just believe so much in the power of the church to change lives and to be, you know, such an important part of God being able to express himself fully to people. What's your sort of analysis or assessment on how things have been going?
Yeah, it's definitely been hard not being able to see all of the people at church and stuff every week in person and things like that. And a lot of churches have been affected like through their giving or in different areas like that. But what I've seen and what I've experienced personally has been really positive, and it gives me hope because I really like thinking about the church as a people and not the building. And I really try to encourage people to think that way because that's what the Bible says. The church is the people, not the building. And and it's really cool to see how the country all of a sudden and the world had to go, oh, wait, the church isn't a building and it's a people, and we can meet online and we can meet in homes, and we can actually be the church to our neighbors through helping them out, going shopping for them, giving them things, or like supporting them even in social distancing. And so that has been a really positive thing that I've seen come out of this, is that more and more people are thinking less of the church as a building and more of the church as a people. And then another thing that I've seen is really like the unity of churches coming together to help each other out. I've joined a lot of groups on Facebook that are like church administrative, church social media managers, church leaders in the community, and they're all helping each other and giving each other feedback and giving each other resources so that they can go out and make the best online ministries or reopen their churches in the safest way possible. And so it's been cool to see the church come together like that, because when I served with Life Church, they always talked about how the local church is the hope of the world, and together we can accomplish infinitely more than apart. And so it's been cool to actually see that being played out. And so that's why I think this can be a really positive thing for the church, even though it's been really hard not meeting in person and not seeing all of our friends in person. I think it's really a positive thing that God's working through it.
Yeah, I was just going to say it is hard and there are fears that go along with it. But what I've been thinking about is just that because there's been sort of such a focus on church being online, there's so many people that may never actually want to take that step to go into a church, especially if you haven't been for years. Or I know a lot of people that stopped going to church recently are from the Catholic Church. And like the stats say that a strong percentage of like people that sort of identify as nuns or no longer attend church did come from a Catholic background. That's not to be is saying anything negative about the Catholic faith. But the reason I say that is just because going to a like a Protestant church is going to be a completely different experience, and that can be like really intimidating, and you may not go. And so what I love about this time is just that it gives people a chance to check it out and like check it out. They wouldn't have otherwise done so because they're at home, because they're seeing it a whole lot more. And so my hope is sort of that down the road, this has given people that time that are sort of lurkers that wouldn't normally go to church. It's given them that time to sort of explore and decide and hopefully show up eventually. Because I know that some of the stuff I've been reading, I've been keeping up with Barna's research over the past several months. I don't know if are you following their stuff? They do this thing called Church Pulse Weekly.
No, I haven't followed that. I'll have to follow that.
You get on that, yeah.
I've seen their books and their research.
Yeah, it's what they're doing right now is so great because the research is really real time. Like every week they have new data on what's going on. And what they've been finding is that churches are reporting like higher attendance levels online than they were in person. Now that's sort of, how are they defining that, view versus people in the church. So it's sort of like you're not really sure what that totally means, but what they can say is that they're seeing positive stuff happening. And so I think that's really cool watching that happen and just seeing, what I've been learning and reading about is just that God moves so powerfully in transition, in change, in crisis, and we're doing all those things at the same time right now. And so I think that God's doing some really cool stuff right now. And we may not be able to see what that is right now at this very moment, but it's going to kind of happen in the future. So I really like going to church though.
Yes, I miss seeing everybody too. And like transitioning from Waterline to Way City in the middle of not being able to see anybody has been a little bit of a a difficult
Yeah.
thing emotionally for me, but luckily I didn't go very far away. I wanted to comment on what you said about like online church being an open door for
Mhm.
the seekers and things like that, and people who haven't been to church in a long time or have never been to church. When I was in high school, I watched Life Church Online during the week, and it really opened the door for me when I went to college in Oklahoma. I already knew where I wanted to go to church because I
Yeah.
had been watching it online. And so it really made the transition from the online campus to an actual campus easier for me. And so I agree wholeheartedly with what you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. And now I haven't heard the story yet, but I hear, like you just said, you're at a new church, which is a church plant
Mm-hmm.
out of our church, Waterline.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I transitioned over to Way City Church. It's in Speedway, Indiana. And if you're in the area, you should check it out because it's really cool. Our building is on 30th Street, and we launched in September. And so we're not quite a year old. But it's really cool because our vision is to live in Speedway as it is in heaven, and to make disciples who make disciples. And so it's been really fun to the last couple weeks work with that. And so I'm going to be I am the assistant pastor. And I get to work on a lot of adult ministry things. So small groups, new guest follow up systems, and outreach. And so that's a lot of stuff I really like to work with. And so I am looking forward to impacting the Speedway community with Jesus. So it'll be
So,
fun.
Paige, tell me, first of all, how does it feel like to be called, like, you're the assistant pastor? Like, that's sort of seems like a big deal for someone that's
Yeah.
23. And secondly, like, have you done any preaching yet?
I have not preached for Way City yet. I've only been with Way City for like 2 or 3 weeks. But one of the first things that John, my new pastor, had me do is a social media plan. And so we've been developing that together, and that's been really fun. Um, it's kind of weird to say that I'm an assistant pastor because I've been so used to being a resident or an intern all through college.
Yeah.
And so it feels really big to call myself an assistant pastor, but I'm really honored that like God would call me to do that, especially like here in Speedway, because Speedway really feels like home to me, even though I haven't been here for very long, because it's Speedway, Indiana, and it's all about racing. And like
Mm-hmm.
I've gone and had picnics at the racetrack. It's been so fun. But that's what I've been feeling here. And so
How's your group handling, your ministry handling, like the fact that there's not going to be IndyCar?
um my group, with like the NASCAR races being postponed and IndyCar being postponed and things like that, it's been interesting. It's people are definitely missing the real racing, but iRacing has been going on for like 6 or 8 weeks, and that's kind of helped fill the void. But at this moment, everyone's kind of tired of it. And so since there's not been racing, what I've been doing with my group is we've been having more conversations about like if you could meet any NASCAR driver, who would it be? What's your favorite track? What's your favorite NASCAR memory? Things like that. Trying to keep it positive and really learn more about each other, which has been really fun. The thing I've really enjoyed through this entire like coronavirus time with my group is we've gotten closer together as a community because we've been praying for each other more, and we've been learning more about each other in our own personal lives, and we've been finding ways to relate with each other through our like racing experiences and our memories and our favorite drivers and things like that. And my group has been growing. We've added almost 100 new people in this
Wow,
time. And so
that's a
it's
lot.
been really, really fun to see
Um,
that.
yeah, I was going to say, I'll link your group once we get off here. I can go back and edit the information. But who are your favorite drivers or one favorite driver?
My favorite NASCAR drivers are Jimmy Johnson, the best NASCAR driver ever. If anybody disagrees with that, I
Not
will
a
give you
debatable thing, apparently.
I will give you the statistics. But he's my number one, but he's retiring at the end of this year, as far as we know. And so Joey Logano is my number two. And so he's been in my top three since he started, but he'll be taking Jimmy's spot, but Jimmy will always be my favorite.
That's great. Well, I will say that I don't know a ton about it, but I have so many great memories growing up in Indiana of IndyCar. Um,
Mm-hmm.
every May, the race happening, and like, I don't know if it still gets blacked out, but you could only listen to it on the radio. When I was growing up, you couldn't watch it on TV. I'm sure there are
Mm.
ways to watch it now, but that was always so interesting to me because it was just like this thing where you had to have the radio on in the backyard, and it's like summer, and everyone's like grilling out, and it's like
Oh,
who's gonna
that's
win?
so
And
fun.
I have so many, like, that's just an Indiana thing. Like, if you're from Indiana,
Yeah.
you grew up with that, that. So it's kind of fun. And so I hope some people watching that are my Indiana friends will, if they're interested, check out your group and, uh,
Mm-hmm.
get involved. It doesn't hurt to join a group, right? You can always, be a lurker, as so many people are, and I am in
Yes.
some groups that I'm in. So, okay, Paige. Well, thank you so much for filling us in on your ministry and what's going on with you. I think it's really awesome, and it's just really great to hear from someone that has this passion and is doing something about it.
Well, thank you, Erica. It's been good talking with you.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.